All right, what's up, everybody? Today we are here interviewing Aaron from 802 Garage. Aaron, would you like to introduce yourself to everybody?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Aaron, as JA said. I run a channel called 802 Garage. It's called 802 Garage because it is based in Vermont, which, yes, that is a state, I promise you. It's been about negative 10 degrees or worse here every day recently, so not the best for car work. But basically, my channel is really focused on just being a DIY mechanic and fixing everything myself. And I have a few project cars we'll be talking about, and that's really where my focus is. I'm really into older Japanese cars, especially. And yeah, thanks for having me on, JA.
No problem. All right, so the first question we have for you is, how did you get into cars?
So I guess I would say it starts with my dad. I mean, when I was younger, we never really had a ton of money, so we didn't have many fancy cars, but we always had Subarus because living up here in the mountains where there's tons of snow, and I live in a town that's all dirt roads. There's only one paved road. That you really need to have a vehicle that's can handle those conditions. We have an extra season here. We have mud season, so having all-wheel drive really helps with that and a little bit of ground clearance. So, the first cars I can remember our family having are like old Subaru GLs and Loyales, and then the early Legacies. And my dad would always work on them, show me a little bit about that, and that kind of really started getting me into cars. But it's funny because I never thought I would be like a car guy. I kind of hated them all throughout like high school because I just thought guys who spent way too much time like looking at cars and thinking about cars were just like wasting their time. But I also live in an area where there's a lot of, shall we say, rednecks. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but they just weren't into the kind of cars I was into. So my taste in cars really started after I got my license at about 16, and I got my own Subaru, a 96 Impreza, and kind of started to get a connection to the car. And ever since then, it grew and grew. And then especially, towards college, once I got into college, I started getting a lot more into it, researching it a lot more, got really into watching rally cars. And then just slowly that grew out into all the Japanese cars. And I have an appreciation for a lot of American cars too. But yeah, that's basically how it started out. Just Subarus being the rough and tumble, reliable rigs we needed, and then having my own and deciding I wanted to work on them instead of having some other mechanic screw it up for me.
How did you get into doing YouTube? Like, was there anyone that kind of inspired you to get into doing YouTube or anything like that? Like, how did you get into it?
Yeah, so I didn't really watch a ton of YouTube car channels until just a couple of years ago. And I remember the first time I ever saw a Mighty Car Mods video too. I didn't actually watch it. I put it in save for later, and it was like their upgrading our old Subaru Liberty video, which is the Subaru Legacy in the USA, of course. And there's like this white Legacy. I'm like, I can be down with this. Like guys working on like an old affordable car, right? Like why not? So I put it in my save for later. And at that time, I watched some TJ Hunt and I watched some of the other guys, but I was really more into the guys, the channels who did it themselves. And there's a few people who really kind of inspired me to get into YouTube, which is mostly, I'm going to start out with Tyler's Garage, who everybody should check out if they haven't. He's going to go big this year, got a new camera. He's got some cool projects, turbo stuff. But he's just this guy from the Midwest, and he started cutting up a Toyota Tercel in his garage and charging it on like minimal budget and tools and space. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I can do that. I can make a channel about that. And I was like, and that's what I want to do anyways. I've been buying some project cars to work on, and having a channel will help motivate me to keep doing it. If I have people watching who want to see this and who are commenting and expecting the next part of the build, I have to get it done or I'm letting people down, not just myself, because sometimes I have problems focusing or with motivation. So that was really a lot of it. And then also watching Boosted Boys, I'm like, if this kid Kyle from Colorado can build a turbo Honda that makes 500 horsepower in his garage, then certainly I can make something function with the amount of like knowledge and tools I have and experience. So I'm a little bit older than Kyle is, and then too, watching Mighty Car Mods. I mean, sure, they've got a big budget now, but they started out just average guys. And so once I finally went back and watched them, I was like, why have I not been watching this for like years? So stuff like that really inspired me. And there's other smaller channels like me, like Jacob from Rust Belt Garage, who gave me this raccoon mascot today, as a few of you saw in my live stream. And there's other people too, that I always like to mention. Eric from Rev Match, and Jeff from Fully Spooled, Jesse from Gearheads Garage working on Miatas. We're all just average guys we do our own thing with cars, and so that's really cool. So getting into YouTube helped me get motivated and stay on task. And I went daily this summer, so it was a really good time.
So how did you get into the car scene in your hometown?
So there is no car scene in my hometown. So I noticed you had an interview with Pure Function the other day, who's got a pretty awesome channel and some really sweet cars. And he was like, I come from a very small town of only 10,000 people. And I was like, first of all, Vermont, my entire state, has 650,000 people. My town has less than 500. So, you know, we have dirt roads and trees and not much else. So the car scene in my town is, well, look at that Subaru go over the snow. But no, I mean, in this area, really, you've got just a mix of kind of like Subaru lovers, lifted trucks and Jeeps, and, you know, off-roading. And then if you go to pockets of the States, there's some more car culture. But so one of the reasons I started my channel is actually to hopefully boost the car scene in Vermont a little bit, because there's various fragmented groups all over Facebook, you know, that are into Subarus or into cars in general, but it's really hard to get any kind of a decent sized meet going on up here. So I was hoping, like, hey, who knows, maybe someday if I get my channel to, what, you know, 5,000-10,000 subscribers, even if a few hundred of them are from Vermont, that's a significant portion of car lovers in Vermont, and maybe I can get something going. You mean? So the car scene is fragmented here, but it's nice when you do run into somebody you can talk to about it a lot.
So what was your childhood dream car growing up?
So I was thinking about that actually when you asked me how I got into cars, because when I was a kid, I did play Gran Turismo, which was definitely one of the things that started to get me into cars. And I always loved the Dodge Viper, first of all. I kind of realized when I got older that it's, you know, it's a fun toy, but it's not really what I desire in cars. And the car that I always played in Gran Turismo most was the Mitsubishi GTO Twin Turbo, which is also known as the 3000 GT VR4 in the USA. So, you know, it's the twin turbo V6 all-wheel drive Mitsubishi. Pretty, you know, pretty sweet. And
here's something funny that happened with one of those cars.
Yeah, go for it.
So at the Frostburg Cruise, me and my friend, well, my friend told this 3000 GT to do a burnout.
Yeah.
You can imagine how that went. It was like squeak the tires a little bit, and that was about it.
And if it was not the VR4 version, then they're kind of anemic anyways. And if it is, then they're all-wheel drive, and you're just gonna launch or break an axle. But they're pretty sweet cars. But it was funny because on Gran Turismo, you could tune those up to like 990 horsepower, and it was just ridiculous. And so I would race with those. I would just be like zoom past everything in the early races, and it couldn't handle worth crap because I had no idea what I was doing. But I went back years later and read the manual for Gran Turismo, and it's basically a driving manual. It's not about the game. It's literally teaching you car dynamics and how to go around a racetrack properly. And going back all those years later and realizing how dumb I was like, this is amazing. And so my dream cars shifted from sort of those high horsepower boats to much more like Subaru rally cars. I really love WRX and STIs, and I would love to get a clean first-gen Impreza shell someday to mess around with. I have my 93 Impreza GC daily driver. I had a 96, which is still in my lawn, and I have a 2001 2.5 RS shell. So you can probably tell I like GC Imprezas. The 2.5 RS shell, I want to put an H6 in and swap it to rear-wheel drive just to do dumb stuff with it, but that's hopefully a project for, you know, the next couple of years. But yeah, so my childhood dream car was along those lines. But, you know, and did you ask what my current one was too?
Well, I was just about to say, is that like your current dream car, or has that shifted, like changed since your childhood dream car?
Yeah, so my current would still be definitely, I mean, you know, you can start importing the Japanese STI early versions now, and, you know, who knows, maybe someday I'll end up with one of those because they're just, you know, clean and epic. I also really love the original Honda Acura NSX. I mean, just incredible cars. And most of my dream cars are pretty realistic. I'm not so much big on, like, you know, Ferraris and Lambos and stuff like that, but I would love to have an STI. I'd love to have an NSX, the old one. And yeah, you know, there's a few other cars that I'm really happy to have a Toyota MR2. That's one that I've always wanted. All
right, so what was the first car that you ever drove?
I think I tried to drive one of our early Subaru Loyales out of the driveway once when I was when I was 8 or 9 or something like that. But the first car I actually drove, I think, was my mom's Subaru. I want to say it was a Loyale, which was basically like it looks like an earlier version of the Legacy, really boxy, had a 4-wheel drive button on the shifter. It was so badass, right? You could be driving down the road and you could click it into 4-wheel drive instead of 2-wheel. And that was a stick shift. And I think it was an 87 or maybe an 88 or 89. But it was a decent car, but that's how I learned to drive, was in a stick shift ancient Subaru. And then I took my license test in her 96 Jeep Cherokee, which was also a stick shift and didn't have really much of a working e-brake. So hill start was interesting when I had to do that. But that was one of the earlier cars I drove too.
Alrighty, so yeah, I lost track of my topics because I'm trying to keep up with stuff in the in the
Yeah,
comments.
there's people harassing me about getting a V8. Got to get the V8.
Yeah, I was seeing that. Good thing this is edited. Just so everybody knows, this will be edited and re-uploaded later with pictures of like Aaron's cars and stuff like that, stuff that we've talked about, and just so it's a little more interesting. I do it this way. I do it this way so that everybody can get the chance to ask their questions for Aaron.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
if they have anything for him, I'm just getting through the basic bitch questions.
Yeah, I appreciate y'all joining. We got quite a few people watching.
So what made you get your Eclipse GSX?
So yeah, so I have a 1997 Mitsubishi Eclipse GSX. So it's a 2G DSM, and it's in real rough shape. And this was sort of one of those impulse buys that maybe wasn't a great decision. I won't say I regret it, but it's been interesting. So I was working at a factory for a little while, and I had seen this car driving around town, and it turned out that a guy I worked at the factory with owned it. And he finally wanted to get rid of it, and so he had parked it at the Mitsubishi dealer and was allegedly having issues with it where it wouldn't start. The starter wouldn't engage. So I looked it up, and it was like, well, usually it's an issue with the flywheel. And I'm like, well, he's had the flywheel and clutch replaced, so the idiot's put in the wrong parts, right? And he wanted a pretty cheap price for it, and I knocked him down a little bit. I don't want to say exactly how much I paid right now, but I paid well under $1,000 for it. And it only had like 110,000 miles. I looked around the car and there was some rust, but nothing that looked insane. Really beautiful on the outside. I mean, all the body panels were good and everything like that. And then we were talking about me buying it, and then like 2 days, 2 days before I ended up buying it, somebody went to the Mitsubishi dealer and smashed in the driver's window and stole the head unit and all the sound system out of it. There was like a legit, double DIN head unit and a massive sub and capacitor and everything, and they stole it all. I don't know if it was an inside job or not, if this guy just wanted his stuff back before but like he said he was going to take it out before he sold the car. So then he was just mad. I think it helped me get the car a little bit cheaper, but so I bought the car with the broken windshield, broken window and no audio equipment. And because it wouldn't start and it had been sitting so long, the way we ended up getting it started was my friend David had his Subaru Impreza Outback Sport, and he hooked up to me with a tow hook and pulled me out into the street. This is in the middle of town, probably illegal, and we're glad we didn't get caught. And they had put a jump pack under the hood of the car, and I had to put it into gear because the alternator wasn't working well enough to even get it to start too. And we pulled it down the street, and I popped the clutch and let him drag me behind it and basically start the engine by yanking it over and over again until I got it running. And then we went and stopped at the Subaru dealer that's only like, a quarter mile down the road. And I pulled back out and went back to the place to give them their jump pack back. And then when I got back into the car, I stalled it because it was so dead. And we had to do it all over again. So that time I didn't get out of the car, and they came and they took the jump pack out from under, closed the hood, and I drove it back to my workplace where I parked it on a hill so I could pop start it. But anyway, finally got the dang thing home. Never got the time to work on it for like 2 years because I was planning on parting it out, honestly. I was like, you know what? The engine's worth almost what I paid, and I can part out the rest of the car and make a good profit. But over time, just sitting there, I kind of fell in love with the damn thing. And there's not a lot of them around here, and it's real cool. And so now I'm bound and determined to save it. But the more I get into the car, the more of the car is missing from rust. So it's quite a thing. But that's how I got that dang thing. Is just some guy at work. Hey, you want to buy this? Yeah. Oh, yeah, sure. That's a good idea.
And all right, my next question is the same as Zebulon Beatty's.
Yeah, sure.
What made you get the MR2?
So the MR2, I have always wanted an MR2. Ever since I saw the little red wedges like at Walmart, when I was a teenager, and I'd be like, man, that car is cool. What the heck is that? And this is before I was even really into cars. And I usually didn't ask people about him, just some old guy driving it or they weren't at the car or whatever. So I was just on, over time I learned more about him, and I really like the Mark I, the first generation. It's just kind of my style, I guess. And I was on Facebook Marketplace, the place where I get all my terrible, amazing deals. And one came up for $500, and it looked like it was in really good shape. And I'm like, no way. So, he says top end of the engine is bad. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? And apparently he said it was low on compression. Well, that's not top end, that's bottom end. But I'm like, whatever. Anyway, I go look at the car, and it's in really good shape. It's clearly been repainted, but not a lot of rust or anything like that. The interior is awesome. And I asked him about it, and he said apparently it was owned by a guy who restored them, and then his son drove this one and just burned the crap out of the engine and fried the pistons or whatever. So it was no good. And I'm like, well, you know what, fine, for the price, that makes sense. But even if I have to fix the engine or whatever, this is still pretty cheap. For one that's in decent shape in this area. And this is in the middle of winter, so we had to clean all the snow off of it, and this is in the very northwest tip of Vermont. And, I got it towed home by AAA, so it was free all the way across the state in like a crazy blizzard. The tow truck driver must have hated me, right? And he got like lost bringing it home. Apparently he had to stop and unload it to help a car get stuck out of a ditch and then reload it and come to my place. So he was super late, and I was kind of mad that they did that. I was like, no, just bring it to me. But people need help, so that's fine. But I think they cracked the little front bumper a tiny bit. But anyway, got it home, and yeah, that was the story on that one. Is I saw it on Facebook Marketplace for $500. I couldn't pass it up. I'm like, I'm not going to see another one this cheap for a while. And then now that I have it home, I've compression tested it. I have my live streams, so you can see the blow by. It like literally blows smoke out of the oil cap like it's a damn air pump. It's terrible. So I'm gonna SR20 swap that and hopefully turbocharge it down the road. I don't think anybody's ever done that swap. So have the Nissan sitting in my yard with the engine. I just gotta yank it and the whole wiring harness, and we'll see how that goes. But that's the big plan for spring. Nice. Basically gonna do the swap for free. The whole Nissan cost me $200. So. And that engine runs great.
What made you want to get your most recent the Subaru?
The WRX?
Yeah, the WRX. What made you want to get that car?
Well, so it's a 2004 WRX, and I've always wanted a WRX. I mean, since I was 16, 17. Always loved the Subaru Rumble. Always loved Subarus. Always loved rally cars, and I figured I'd always get a Bug-Eye first because they're cheapest, right? 2002, 2003. And then once again, I was on Facebook Marketplace. This 2004 WRX comes up for $900. And I'm like, okay, so it must be blown up, right? Like, so I messaged the guy. He's like, no, it runs great. It's mostly stock. He's like, I have to get rid of it because the landlord wants me to, and it's got a bad second gear. And I'm like, all right, you know what? I'll go check it out. So this is in Plattsburgh. I had to drive about an hour and a half to get over there from Burlington, Vermont. And the car is, beautiful. It's got a tiny bit of rust starting on the quarter panels. It is mostly stock other than a massive exhaust, which is loud as heck. If you go check out my latest video, it's a cold start when it's negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit, which is crazy. And yeah, so that day, I think he originally wanted $1,200, and he's like, listen, man, the lowest I can go is $900. I was like, I'm not even going to argue with you from there. Went to the bank, got the money. I may have had to dip my credit a little bit for it. Got it towed to Burlington by AAA, and then I got a temporary registration permit for it in New York, which is a massive pain in the bum. Luckily, it was cheap though. And then I drove it home, and I've been hooning it around in the snow over here. It's been great. But I do have a transmission for it. I bought a replacement transmission for $150. Hopefully, gonna have a clutch to put in here too, and hopefully gonna make that my daily driver come spring. But yeah, $900 WRX. What's not to love? So
yeah, that's a pretty good deal right there. This is just gonna be a funny question just to add in here, just for the hell of it.
Sure.
Name Jesus.
Have you looked at me? No. Yeah. If I took the hat off, which I won't right now because my hair's a mess, I got pretty long hair and the beard, so I look like the traditional Western version of Jesus, I guess. But only a few people call me that. But a lot of people call me Mullet because that's what I use as my last name a lot of the time. But.
I tend to call you Jesus.
Oh, there you go. As long as you think so.
I made that as your messenger name on Facebook.
Hey, thanks everybody for coming over to watch. Toss a thumbs up. Subscribe to Jay if you're not. Go check out 802 Garage if you haven't. That cold start video is pretty sweet. I literally went out at 1:30 in the morning when it was negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit, which is -29 Celsius for any of our international viewers. And it started right up, and it made huge smoke clouds. I smelled like exhaust for hours. Speaking of international, Waynham says hi from Australia, guys. Yo, what's up?
Nice.
Nova TZ Taz, I get called Jesus here. Yep. But anyway, what's up?
I
Thanks
can
so much for
believe
watching,
that.
everybody.
I can believe that, Sean. So what are some cool things you have experienced from doing YouTube?
Let me think here real quick. I'm trying to think of one guy's name real quick, but I mean, definitely just the community in general has been really awesome because I've just met so many guys who are in the similar field, shall we say, and so I found that guy I was looking for, but so like like I mentioned earlier, I talked to RevMatch, his name's Eric, and I talked to Fully Spooled, Jeff, and Honda Vlogs, which is Christian. Some of you guys might have seen his stuff. Jesse from Gearheads. I've been watching this channel, DIY Initial DIY Mods. Like all these guys are now around where I'm at. They're anywhere from 1,000 to 5,000 subscribers. So we're all like smaller channels. And most of these guys I met when we were all in the low hundreds, because when I was just starting on YouTube, I was like, okay, what do I want to do with my channel? And I would go around and comment to these guys and give them tips based on what I had found and learn from them. Hey, you should tag this way. I like this thumbnail. I didn't like this one. And they were really positive and responsive, just like I try to be to anybody who comments on my channel. And I think I sent a couple of them links on Instagram for like a Win This Welder or something. And it accidentally went as a message. And then they were like, and I was like, well, hey, I don't remember who suggested it, but one of us was like, hey, now that we're here, why don't we have a chat? And we're like, sure. So we added a couple more of these guys. So I'm like, hey, we should add this guy. And we ended up with this nice chat of like 5 YouTubers. And then we moved it over to Facebook because Instagram kind of sucks for messaging. And we've been chatting ever since and helping our channels grow. We've added a couple guys, and I've met some other really cool people. I've actually gotten to talk to Kyle from Boosted Boys quite a bit. I don't like trumpet that much because I don't want to like invade his personal space, and he's kind of a YouTube celeb now. But I comment on his channel all the time. And people give me crap, and I just want to be like, he doesn't mind. But yeah, so that's been a lot of fun getting to talk to him and get some inside scoops on Boosted Boys. And I've been able to hook him up with a couple people too.
Yeah, he seems like a pretty cool guy. I try to watch his videos as much as I can.
Yeah, Kyle's super chill. He's really nice. And I've also talked to a few other bigger YouTubers. And I found Amelia Hartford. I'm sure some of you have seen her stuff. And Sarah Intuned. I found both of them when they were like around 1,000 subscribers. Sarah Intuned even earlier, like 500 or 600. So I've been talking to them. And they're both really, really nice ladies, and they come and comment on my videos sometimes. So it's kind of cool knowing these celebs on YouTube, if you will. And then another cool thing, I went to Wicked Big Meat this year, and I actually met Crispy from Crispy Media, and he did a little mini interview of me with my phone that unfortunately is on the dead hard drive. But when I do my lead up to Wicked Big Meat this year, I have a quick interview with him. He does all these really cool edits, and he was a super, super nice, down-to-earth guy, and he's got tons of subscribers. I'm not exactly sure how many, but many. Is the truth here. Let me see, he's up to 250K. So yeah, I mean, surprisingly, I've gotten to meet or talk to some big channels, and through you actually too, I've met some big channels, JA, because you've had had Super Speeders Rob on, so I've met Rob Ferretti through you, and JR Garage, and JR said I could come down and drive any one of his cars I want. So hopefully I'm going to go down to North Carolina on a trip here, and I might stop in DC and see if he's true to his word on that.
Hey, stop and see me too.
Oh yeah, well that's part of the reason to go, man. But,
some sketchy things that you have done in a car.
I mean, just general shenanigans when I was younger, which you shouldn't do. And like we had this fun thing we would do for a while called Adventure Road in my '96 Impreza, and it was literally like we only did it a couple times, but we'd be on our way home from somewhere in Vermont, and we go, let's take Adventure Road. And we're like, what's that? We're like, well, you pick. And we'd point at some random road we were driving past. Let's go down that one. We didn't have GPS. We didn't have anything. We just knew the direction of the sun and which way we needed to go. And I remember one day we would have gotten home in 45 minutes, and I think it took us 4 hours because we ended up making this massive like S across the state on all back roads. Anytime we got into a paved road, we had to take the next dirt road we could find, and just like driving down these crazy dirt roads in the middle of nowhere. And it was a lot of fun. Sometimes some gravel back roads when you don't know them and you're driving a little too fast can be real sketchy, but luckily I never gotten anything too bad with that. The only time I actually crash a dang car, I was not being irresponsible. I was just driving and I was just tired. And that was when I was only 16, so I had no idea what I was doing. Other than that, I've been playing around with the WRX outside a little bit, but luckily it's on, completely empty roads and there's snowbanks everywhere. So if I did screw up, I wouldn't kill anything. But I have a natural fear of death, so I'm not as crazy as some people. But
Maybe me.
Yeah. Some people aren't as afraid as I am.
I've never been like too scared in a car yet, surprisingly.
And I've seen you drive some of those high horsepower cars way faster than anything I've driven, and you've got more guts than I do at times. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, that may or may not be true. I mean, I drifted that 2016 Charger.
Yeah, I know. I was like, Jesus, man, that's sketchy.
So, what's the story of your first ticket?
Oh, so, this was pretty funny. The first ticket I can remember getting, I might have gotten a speeding ticket before this, but I don't remember. And I've had a few, and most of them I've gotten out of. But I was just driving to high school, and it's winter, and I'm driving down the main road towards school, and I'm going past a school bus, and I'm going over a bridge, like literally a bridge over a river. And right as I'm getting to this bus, which is on the bridge, like they're partially pulled onto it, their stop sign comes open like as I'm going by the front of the bus. And I'm not like speeding or anything. I think it's a 50 mile per hour zone. And I was going slower than that, if anything. And I don't know, the bus must have had its yellow flashers on. I didn't see them because the sun was directly in my eyes. And I mean, like the person in the car with me even told the officer, like we could not see crap. We were just driving and suddenly this bus stopped. And I go past this bus as the stop sign opens, right as I get there. And right past the bus is a cop pulled over on the side of the road next to a driveway. Like I almost feel like he was waiting for his kid to be dropped off or something like that, right? And so he looks at me like I'm the dumbest SOB he's ever seen. And I'm just like, oh, crap. He pulls me right over and he's like, you want to tell me what you did wrong? I'm like, I'm not honestly sure, officer. He's like, well, you passed that school bus with its stop sign open. I'm like, I didn't mean to, officer. He's like, oh, yeah. He's like, well, it seemed like you were going pretty quick to me. I'm like, that's because I had no idea it was stopping. He was pretty nice about it overall, but he was basically like, you're an idiot. And I was like, I didn't do it on purpose, man. So I ended up, the problem was I was on my junior operator's license. I was only 16 and it was like a $210 ticket, which was not that bad. But the problem is that it was 6 points on my license, and anything 3 points or more when you're on your junior operator's license is instant license suspension. So I'm like, well, crap. Because I would have had my license suspended for, I think, either 3 or 6 months. And so actually this was when I was 17 because I was going to turn 18 not too long after. I think it was about 7 months away from being 18. And so I took it to court and they luckily extended out my court date. And so it was getting pretty close to my birthday. And they're like, if you can just keep fighting it until your birthday, then you won't lose your license. And the cop actually told me that when I went to court. He's like, just push out the appeal as long as you can. But so we went to court and they didn't believe my side of the story. And they said, nah, you're still going to get the ticket. And the hilarious thing about this is, so they didn't drop the ticket. We paid the fine. And I didn't really lose my license because my birthday was literally 3 days after the suspension took place or something like that. So I go to college and it's winter the next year. So literally almost a year later, I'm at college and I get onto the interstate coming out of Burlington and there's all the street lights and I didn't have my headlights on. I didn't even think about it. And the cop stops me and he goes, you don't have your headlights on. I'm like, oh no, I'm sorry, officer. I just pulled onto the highway. Didn't know. He comes back to the car and he goes, so we've got a problem. And I go, what's that? He goes, your license is suspended. And I was like, I'm sorry? And he's like, your license is suspended. I'm like, are you sure? And he's like, well, that's what my computer says. So I call my mom and I'm like, what's going on here? She's like, let me look at this. And meanwhile, he's like, listen, man, I can wait a little bit for you to have a friend come get your car, but otherwise we're going to have you towed. And I'm just like, oh crap. What the hell am I going to do? I call all my friends. Nobody's available except for this one guy, Brando, RIP. He has passed away since in an automobile accident. Everybody be safe when you drive. But this guy I don't even really like, who's in my hall, who has this terrible reputation for being crazy, is the only guy available who knows how to drive a stick. So he comes over and gets my car and whomps on it the whole way back to my hall. This cop has been waiting with me for an hour and a half, and he is pissed. But luckily, so I had somebody to drive the car back, and we found out that we had paid the ticket, but we forgot to pay the tax. So for lack of $10, my license had actually been suspended for 3 months or something like that, and I had no idea. And it
Holy
was like,
crap.
it was really funny. So we just paid it and I got my license back and everything. But yeah, so that ended up being quite a fiasco and it was completely unintentional.
So, what's some interesting encounters you've had with cops besides that one, obviously?
There's one time I passed a car going around this corner, and I know I must have hit like 60. I think he got me for 67 and a 50 or 62 and a 50. I don't remember. And as I went around the corner, I saw the cop sitting off on the thing, and I was just mad because this is one of those cars you're following. They go under the speed limit as much as possible everywhere, and then on the straights they speed up to like just over, and you're just like, come on, man, I just want to go around. Like, why are you driving like this? And so the cop stops me. He comes over, and I have my window rolled down. I have my head on the steering wheel. He's like, how you doing tonight, sir? And I'm like, been better. And he's like, you know what you did wrong? I was like, speeding. He's like, y'all set then? I'm like, yep. And he's like, all right, I'll be right back with the ticket. I was like, thank you. That was the whole interaction because I was like, I got nothing to argue with on this one. And then one time I was in Burlington again, and my friend had pulled up at like a stoplight, and I pulled up next to him, and we were like good friends and stuff. And I was just asking like, hey, where are you going? And like I had like reached my hand out the window to like give him a fist bump or something like that. And we both pull away at the same time, and I didn't realize my wheel was turned towards his car. So when I like take off to try to be funny, I almost hit him, and I whip my wheel back and then like drive off. And like, oh shit, good thing I didn't hit his car because his car is worth a lot more than mine, right? And then right away I get lit up, and these cop stops me. He's like, so how you doing tonight? I'm like, oh, I'm doing okay. He's like, so you got a little bit of road rage there, huh? And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, it looked like you were a little bit angry at that car. And I'm like, no, those are my friends. Like, I was just talking to them, and I was trying to be funny. Honestly, officer, like, pull away. I know I probably shouldn't have done that, but like, I just actually had my wheel turn. He's like, uh-huh. And so he's like, you're sure those are your friends? I'm like, yeah, honestly. He's like, I saw you wave your fist at him. I'm like, no, like, I was just giving him a fist bump out the window. He's like, okay. And he's like, can I see your license and registration, please? And this is the best part. I open my glove box, and he takes my license and registration. He looks in the glove box, and I have a pair of like leather gloves in the glove box for winter driving because it's cold. And he goes, hey, what you got those gloves in there for? And I'm like, what? Why do I have gloves in my glove box, officer? The glove box, the glove compartment? Why do I have gloves in winter in Vermont in my glove compartment, officer? I didn't say any of that. Obviously, I was like, oh, I just use those for driving in the winter because, you know, the steering wheel gets cold. I realize now he was probably trying to see if I was angry. Like, he was probably asking me a dumb question on purpose. But at the time, I was like, what kind of a question is this? Luckily, he believed me, I think, and let me off with a warning. But I was like, a cop actually asked me why I had gloves in my glove box. He's like, well, I like to commit murders on the weekend, and they hide the fingerprints.
Oh my god, that is definitely a different story.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I was just like, oh my god.
Do you have any other interesting encounters with cops, or is that all of them?
Oh, I mean, I've had a few. I've had a few times where I've had like a potential girlfriend or a girlfriend in the car, and they're always astounded how well I am with cops. I always teach everybody, if your cop pulls you over, I don't care what state you're in, I don't care what state of mind you're in, pull over soon, because they know when they want you to stop in a safe spot. Roll down your window, turn off the radio, turn off the car, put your hands on the steering wheel, and wait for them to come to the car. When they get there, tell them everything you are going to do. It doesn't matter if you're in a really safe area like Vermont. They will still appreciate the fact that you're trying to show them respect and safety. And if you're in a sketchy area, because I do have a good story for you, they will really appreciate it, because I was with my nephew one time in Pleasantville, New York, which is not the most pleasant place. I will tell you that. It's like 60 miles north of New York City or something like that. And it's kind of a town. And my nephew got stopped for parking on pavement, which basically means he waited through a light cycle of a stoplight. And the cop is coming over to the car, and his window doesn't work in this 92 Nissan Sentra. And I told him, I said, wait for the police officer to come to the car and point at the door and say very clearly that your window does not work, and let him open the door or have him ask you to do it. So the cop is walking over to the car, and my nephew, the smart guy that he is, right before the cop's there, pops the door. And the cop instantly reaches for, I believe he reached for a taser, not a gun, because this is several years back, and the cops are maybe a little less fidgety than all the recent events going on, and I understand why they are now. But I'm like, his window doesn't work! His window doesn't work, because this cop is about to tase and or shoot my nephew, because the idiot does not do what I told him to do and wait with his hands on the wheel. And this cop, we're not in a nice area like Vermont. Luckily, the cop calmed down and was like, can you open the door with your hands clearly on, like, I was like, you idiot. So luckily, we just got a ticket and didn't get shot. But, like, God, you
Yeah,
pop
that's
a cop nowadays, and you're fixing to get quite a few bullets. So, So anyway, that's what I tell everybody to do, and I'm usually just very polite and calm and honest. That's one thing. If you're honest with them too, do you know how fast you're going? Well, like you don't have to tell them that. You like just say no, honestly, I honestly don't know, but like just be straight with them. And
Yeah.
they usually I've gotten off with a lot of warnings. I do have one more really good story, but I don't know if I should keep going on this. But bottom line is, I tried to dodge it one time because he was going the other way, and I knew he turned around to come get me. So I just kind of went down a side road and I pulled into a driveway, and I waited for like 10 minutes, and
I
he
remember the
finally
story.
he shows up and he found me and he pulls into the driveway behind me. I'm like, so he comes over to the window, and I'm in my Impreza, and I have a Mitsubishi Eclipse bumper right next to me in the car because I was actually going to sell the bumper from my Eclipse, which I now, of course, wish I hadn't done. But I was going to get $100 for this, or $80 for this bumper cover, which was not in great shape. And cop comes over to the window. He goes, "How are you doing today?" I'm like, "Good." He's like, "Do you live here?" I'm like, "Nope." He's like, "Do you know who lives here?" And I'm like, "Nope." He's like, "So why are you here?" And I'm like, "Well, honestly, officer, I was trying to dodge you because I was hoping to avoid a ticket today." And he's like, "Uh-huh." He's like, "Do you know I was going to stop you?" I was like, "Probably my inspection because it's out of date. Figure you saw it." He's like, "Yup." And he's like, "Well," he's like, "Do you have any weapons or any drugs in the car?" I was like, "No, officer." He's like, "You're sure?" And I'm like, "I'm 100% certain." He's like, I'm just got the bumper here." And he's like, "So why were you trying to dodge me?" I'm like, "I just can't afford a ticket." He's like, if you hadn't tried to, I probably would have just given you a warning. I'm like, "But officer, I'm like 8 months out of date." And he's like, "I understand that." He's like, "I appreciate your honesty, so I'm not going to give you any more tickets. But if you hadn't tried to play with it, I wouldn't have given you the ticket." And I'm like, "Okay, well, I'm very sorry, and I don't intend to do it again." But this guy just could not believe that I didn't. I was like, "You can search the car, officer. I have nothing to hide. I don't know who lives here, and I'm very sorry." He's like, "Okay." I went to court, and of course he showed up because if they don't show up, you don't get the ticket. We went in. He explained to the judge everything that happened. I saw Aaron's car, and he was driving. He dodged me, blah blah blah. And the judge goes, "Well, do you have anything to say?" And I said, "First of all, Your Honor, everything the officer said is 100% true. I did try to avoid him so I would not get a ticket. And I did not know who lived at the house, and I'm very sorry. And I realize that this did not pay, and I don't intend to do it again. All I'm asking for is lenience because I really can't afford the full value of the ticket." And they were like, "Well, officer, do you have any problem with us cutting the ticket in half?" He goes, "No, that's fine with me." So I got half off on the ticket in the end.
That works.
But he couldn't believe it.
How did your first car meet turn out that you hosted?
Oh yeah, so there's actually a few guys in the chat here who went to my first car meet. So there's Zeb's here. I don't know if Austin is here from Austin's Problems and Caleb and stuff. But yeah, so like I said, when I started my channel, I really wanted to kind of boost the car community in Vermont. And so this last summer, I was like, well, you know what? I've got enough viewers. I think I was right around 1,000 subs, or I had just over. I was like, why don't I try? So I put an event on Facebook, and I was trying to find a venue. Couldn't find one until like the last week before I wanted to have the meet. So I finally set it up, put out a video, posted in some local car groups. And it actually went really well. I held it in Barrie, Vermont, at like a civic center. There's a big old parking lot there. And at first, only a couple people showed up. I'm like, oh man, I really hope more people come. And I was expecting maybe 10 to 15 cars. And I think we had a total of just over 20 cars there. And we had some really cool stuff. We had like 2 big lines of cars. We had some Subaru. We had a Turbo Baja that was all kitted out. We had, I think we had a WRX. I don't think we had an STI there, but we had a brand new Honda Civic Type R show up. We had an imported Nissan Skyline GTST that was beautiful. I think it was an RB25. Maybe it was RB20. And then we had a S13 240SX with an SR20 swap. Those cars sounded amazing. There was a guy there with an Audi V6 manual wagon that was like one of only like 600 made, I think, something like that. And like a really old like 60s Chrysler like muscle car. I don't even remember exactly what it was, but there was only like a few of them made because it was a special package, and this thing had like 10,000 miles on it. It was crazy. So
Wow.
yeah, and just some other like kind of like tuner cars and stuff like that. But it was great overall. I got to talk to everybody. I actually have interviews filmed with a lot of them. But unfortunately, we had some really cool old Volvos show up too, like an old turbo Volvo, and then we had like the Volvo twins. One was a wagon and one was a sedan. But so I have videos of those interviews and stuff, but they're on my dead hard drive right now. But I was hoping to get those out before Christmas break or during Christmas break, and then my hard drive died. So whatever, before I host my next meet, I'll definitely hopefully have those up once I recover the data. But it went really well, and I'm hoping to have more in the future. And hopefully they'll just get bigger,
Yeah, awesome. All right, so now we're going to go into the subscribers' questions, either whether they be mine or yours or whatever. Zabulian Beatty asks, "Do you like Hondas?"
No, I do. I mean, honestly, like nobody can say that Honda doesn't make like a solid car with a solid engine in general. You know, they've maybe had some misses over the years, but it's easy to see why so many people get into them. You know, they're cheap, they're reliable, they're easy to work on. I mean, when I say easy to work on, I mean relatively. There's not tons of complexity like, you know, an Audi or a BMW or anything. And I'm not saying those cars are bad to work on either. Nobody get mad at me, but I've never owned one. I've driven several. You know, usually Civic, it feels nice and light and tossable and solid. If it's not, you know, beat to crap. And you know, I mean, Boys is my favorite channel, and if anything, they've made me like Hondas more. You know, so yeah, Hondas are a lot of fun. I know some of the guys who are here, like Zeb and Austin. Well, Zeb especially, Zebulon B has been messing with Hondas. He's got some, and the thing I really want to do with a Honda is make everybody mad with it, because I really want to get like some kind of Civic hatch. And I don't know all the codes as well as other people, but you know, whatever. Some Civic hatch. And I really want to swap a different engine into it that's not a Honda engine, just because Honda fanboys will go crazy.
That'll go over well.
I'd love to either put an SR20 into a Honda, because I have another one in my driveway, or I was joking around with Linchester the other day, and since the 4AGE is coming out of my MR2, I could a 4AGE from an 80s Toyota into like an early 90s Honda. Put a 1.6 liter by Toyota in there. I could like build it and turbo it, and people would be like, "What the hell are you doing?" And I just be like, "Don't worry about it." But yeah, I really badly want to put like a Nissan or a Toyota motor into a Honda just to make everyone mad. Maybe even a Ford. Put a Ford Ecotec like 2.3 from like one of the Ford Focuses into a Honda. Everybody would be mad. Ford people, it'd be great.
Actually, my friend Greg messaged me on Instagram and was like, "This dude looks more like the kind of dude to live in a WRX."
You know, it's funny you say that, because there's a WRX parked at my college, like on the street, and this thing looks disgusting, and the inside of it is like filled with junk, and I'm pretty sure the guy has basically been living out of it. I put a note on it that said, "Hey, if you want to sell this, let me know." And he put a note on it later that says, "This car is not abandoned, not for sale." Like, but I think somebody actually does live out of the WRX. I might, you never know.
Okay, so Ma V8 wants to know, when will you finally get a V8 car?
Yeah, so that's one of my friends on Facebook. When I have money, the big thing I've been wanting. So they were all bothering me a while ago. Aaron, you have to get a V8. You have to get a V8, and I'm like, I don't have any money for. I mean, the cheapest you can get, like a longitudinal rear-wheel drive V8 car, is like old Fox body Mustangs that are beat to hell, or like, you know, something crappy like a Crown Vic that only came with an automatic, and I don't want one of those. I want a stick shift. And what I did find was it was like a 1998 Lincoln Mark 8, I want to say, and it was like the LSC, which is like the package with better suspension and thicker sway bars and stuff like that. And they're kind of cool. They're like really swoopy, rounded design, not like a big boxy design. And they came with the same engine that came in the Mustangs, like the 4.6, I want to say. And like it's basically the same as the engine that came in like the better Mustangs, except it has like a worse intake and worse exhaust. So you can tune them up real easy and make good horsepower and sound. And so if I have the time and money a few years from now, let's say, I'd love to get one of those and swap a manual transmission into it and have this really cool sleeper. Because especially all blacked out, it looked really, really cool. And it was only like $3,000 for a really nice one. So if I could find one of those, that'd be pretty sweet. Otherwise, there's the Cadillac Northstar in our driveway that we're trying to get rid of, but that doesn't really count. And I don't know when I'll actually buy a V8 for fun, because I really love my Japanese cars. I would not mind having a Nissan V8 at all, like a VK.
You need a V8, bro.
I need get me a VK45 to swap into something, and I'll do that. But,
all right, next question. Rice Car says, "Can you fix my cars?"
So that's Caleb, who I helped part out the DSMs. I got some videos on that. We parted out in Eclipse, and I helped him work on his a few times too. Yes, I will help you fix your cars. No, I can't do it while I'm in school, but come spring, definitely, and we can make some videos. Maybe spring break too. Who knows?
Novitaz wants to know, what's your favorite car owned?
The favorite one I own right now, I'm assuming.
I guess favorite car ever owned.
The favorite car I've ever owned. That's tough. Because like it's hard to say I have a favorite. I really loved my 1996 Impreza. I only had it for about like 38,000 miles or something like that, but I bought it with 210 on the clock, or 208. I don't even remember. Yeah, 2.2 liter, was just a bulletproof engine, and I beat the snot out of that car, and it was great. It just needed too much work in the end, so I parked it. That was before I really did all my own work. I probably would still have that car on the road today, if I had known how to fix your struts and the power steering leak and all that stuff. And I love my 93 Impreza, just dead reliable, same as my 90, but it's the EJ18, also bulletproof. But my favorite car I own right now, in terms of like when I look at it, I'm just like, yeah, probably the MR2. Like, especially when I get inside the car, the interior is so cool. It's got like this ribbed velveteen seating, and like the whole dash is laid out like an airplane cockpit, and like the windshield wiper and headlight knobs are like these cool little dials that are like have a little stalk sticking off of them on the dash. It's just so cool, and the whole thing is like you know, engineered to look like a little airplane wedge. It's a really cool car. I do love the DSM. I didn't used to like that body style, like the 90s, really curvy, you know, Supra, big butt, large wing, but now I'm all about it. So that car's grown on me a lot. And I mean, now that I finally have a WRX and I finally have some rumble in my life, I mean, I love that car. But so my favorite, like, there's just like a soft spot for it, probably the MR2. Favorite, most enjoyment right now is definitely the WRX. But you know, the 93, yeah. I've had that car for like 8 years now, and it's just been so reliable and so good to me. I can't hate it, you know?
Yeah. Okay, Elliot Scott wants to know, what cars have you owned?
What cars
Try to
haven't
go through them quickly.
All right, so I have 10 cars currently on my stupid lawn because I'm an idiot. And I think I haven't gotten rid of a car I've owned. I mean, I had a 92 Legacy that we don't have anymore, but that was like a family car. So I'll try to go quickly. 1996 Subaru Impreza. I have a 2001 Subaru Outback sedan, the sport utility sedan with the H6. I have a 1996 Nissan 200 SX SER, which I only bought for the SR20, and that thing's a pile of junk, and I never should have bought it, but that's fine. I have a 2001 Nissan Sentra SE, which has a bad clutch, but that has the SR20 in it that's going to go in the MR2. I have a 1985 Toyota MR2 with the bad 4AGE. I have the 1997 Mitsubishi Eclipse GSX. I have a 2001 Impreza 2.5 RS shell, which is going to get the H6 eventually. What am I missing here? I know I'm missing something.
GSX.
Oh, and then I have my 1993 Impreza and my 2004 Subaru WRX. So those are my two that out of those cars, like 4 of them run and drive, I believe, but like you know, the GSX will, once the transmission's back in, it just needs so much rust work.
Yeah. Okay, Vladdy732 wants to know, what would be the project car of your dreams?
Yeah, I mean, if I had to pick one to, like, you know, this is my perfect project car, it would probably be taking a 2001 Impreza 2.5 RS that was in absolutely perfect condition and doing the classic, like, version 7 STI swap, which is the EJ207. They can rev to like 8,000 plus RPM, the EJ20, and just doing like a 6-speed STI swap on it and making it, like, you know, pristine. You know, other than that, I don't know. I just kind of like having a lot of different projects because there's so many things I want to try out, you know?
Yeah.
Honestly, getting the MR2 swapped with an SR20, and then if I ever had the money down the road, getting like a real SR20 DET and turning it up to some really high horsepower and getting some really good suspension, like, I think that would be a build that would blow some people away.
Vladdy732 also wants to know, what are you studying currently? I'm assuming in college.
Yeah, so I'm actually almost finished with my degree in game programming, so literally software engineering just for games, but, you know, making video games. It's what I do at college. We just made a game for a whole semester, and I'll be working on another game for the whole next semester. I'm working on a game called I don't know how much I should say about it really, but I don't think it matters. It's called Toy Box, and it's like a game where, like, co-op multiplayer. You have like little tanks, and it's like as if you're playing with, like, you know, kids' toys, except they're like blowing each other up kind of thing. It's pretty sweet. It's kind of like set up in like sort of like the cell phone style, like you beat a level as fast as you can, get like a star rating. It's really cool. The last game I made was a game where you played as like cavemen who were fighting over fire resources, and you had to like kill each other for them. It was kind of like PUBG, except you're cavemen and you're fighting to the death to keep your fire burning. It was on a planet where there's no daytime. It was pretty sick, but you know.
Interesting. And Rust Belt Garage wants to know, what's your favorite Mexico moments?
Hey, so that's Jacob at Rust Belt Garage. He's the one who sent me the new raccoon channel mascot here, and I'm gonna have an unboxing video of stuff he sent me. Probably come out tomorrow. So he's a good friend of mine. Everybody should check out his channel. He's got a 2G Eclipse also. So my favorite Mexico moments. I've never been much for like any kind of crazy like racing or anything like that, just because honestly, I can't afford it. I mean, if I get a ticket like that, I'm sunk. And I can't afford to have my car impounded. I can't afford to lose my license, and like driving is everything when you live in Vermont. Like everything's so spaced out. And I also, like I said, I have that innate fear of death that some people lack. But there was one time when I was on the interstate, and some guy was like driving past me. It seemed like he wanted to race, and I don't know. I think we got it pretty high in the miles, is all I'll say. And right as I slowed down, quickly after that, a cop flew right past us. And I don't know if he was doing a flyby to say that he knew what we had been up to, or if he was actually just on his way somewhere. But that was really scary. And
dude, I've had something like that happen to me too. Like when I was doing that Charger, we had a cop pass us twice right after we fucking did something.
I was in the car with my nephew too, that same one who almost got shot.
Yeah.
And he was on the interstate just cruising at about, I don't know, 85 and at 65. I mean, it wasn't anything dangerous. We were just cruising on the interstate, but obviously it's above the speed limit. And a cop just pulls up right next to him. And I kind of look over and I'm like, tap him on the shoulder. I'm like, dude, that's a cop. And he's like, looks over there and just lets off the gas. And we just kind of like slowly drip back because this cop was just riding right next to us. Like, I think he was just kind of like letting us know, hey, I don't feel like stopping you right now, but slow the fuck down. Sorry, slow the heck down. But anyway,
whatever.
It was also when I was younger and dumber, and I had my '96 Impreza. There was this one time where Chrysler Sebring was trying to pass us as we were getting onto the interstate, and he like went on me on the right to try to cut the gap in between me and the next car coming up on the right, and so I closed the gap so he couldn't do it. And he was kind of like, "Argh!" And I'm like, don't be a jerk. And then so as soon as we got on the interstate, this guy flies past us. And I mean, I gave the old Impreza everything it had to chase this guy. And I will let you know, that Impreza tops out at 115 because that's when the fuel cutoff is. But I mean, we must have been going for like 20 minutes at like, anywhere between 90 and 115, just straight following this Sebring, trying to keep up with him. But obviously he had a higher top speed, a V6 engine at least. And I mean, we almost got him a couple of times, but there was just no way. And that was quite a thing because the interstates in Vermont aren't straight. They have big, long, sweeping curves. So there were some sketchy moments there, but we tried to keep up with him, and he finally got off an exit, and we were like, damn. But that was pretty intense because I mean.
Okay, so Novotaz wants to know, does the glove fit OJ?
It probably wouldn't. I have pretty small hands, so it'd be like the glove in the real case, where if it doesn't fit, you must have quit. It was not OJ. They were in fact my weekend murder gloves.
Okay, so Zebulian, I'm probably butchering his name so bad. I'm sorry.
Let's call him Zeb. Zebulin Beatty.
Yeah. Zeb. Yeah, Zeb. He wants to know, what's your favorite car?
My favorite car in general? I mean, we pretty much. That's probably same as my dream car, right? I really love the version 6 STI that they only had in Japan, which is the GC, the original chassis. I mean, the Subaru Impreza 22B, it doesn't really get better than that. Two-door, flared fenders. I mean, just mwah. But I also love the old Audi Quattros. I love the MRU. I mean, I like a lot of the cars that everybody likes, like, Supras and stuff like that, but they're not my favorites. The NSX is really awesome, the original NSX. I do have a soft spot for the Dodge Viper, but it's not my favorite. Just kind of a crazy.
Wrench Life 604 wants to know, if you had to buy a pre-1980s car, what would it be?
Pre-80s, so 70s, 60s. That's pretty tough. I mean, if I had my way, if I was gonna go into the 70s, it would probably be like a Ferrari or something like that. But obviously, that's out of the price range. So definitely, I mean, I'd definitely be looking into muscle cars. Dodge muscle cars from the 60s and 70s are just awesome. And actually, even some of the like, you go way back, there's actually some really cool like, you know, even Datsun trucks and stuff back then that are pretty awesome. You know, little Japanese K car things. But yeah, like Dodge muscle cars would probably be my favorite spot to look in there. So something like or even, you know, some of the cool stuff too, Plymouth Dusters or whatever, maybe even an AMC, like an AMC Gremlin. Those things are pretty cool.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
I could see you doing a build on that.
Yeah, man.
Junk Miata wants to know, would you blow the Junk Miata up if you owned it?
I mean, hopefully not. I'm not a big fan of blowing up cars. Like, I mean, maybe we could boost it, and then if it blows up, it blows up. You know what I'm saying?
Boost Monger or Munger or
yeah, I did the same thing. Boost Monger. Yeah, Boost Monger. He's a new YouTube friend of mine, shall we say? Anyway.
He says, future plans for the beard. What's the optimal length?
I mean, the optimal length is it just goes, you know, like until it's out of no. Actually, I haven't officially announced it, but within the next month, most likely all this is going to be gone, as well as the hair, because I'm kind of sick of it, honestly. Like eating a sandwich with a mustache this big is the biggest pain in the butt you cannot possibly imagine. But yeah, so
I kind of can't wait to see you without a beard. That's
well,
gonna be. I don't think
because,
I've seen you without a beard. Actually,
no, I haven't shaved like since I started the channel. Basically, I don't think. I definitely didn't shave last year. The last time I shaved was like, well, no, I shaved in February of last year, but most of my footage was from when I had a beard, and when I actually started doing live streams and stuff on my channel, I had a little bit back.
So then, by the time you went back to freaking filming, you had the beard back.
Yeah, and then I haven't shaved all year or cut my hair. So the plan is actually to get a mullet, a real one, and do various stages of facial hair, and then trim it all off and have a normal haircut with no facial hair.
This is a good question. Rust Belt Garage wants to know, will you dye your beard a funny color before cutting it?
I was actually thinking about that. I saw this really cool video on Facebook of somebody making their beard rainbow colored. I was like, that'd be pretty hilarious just to do for like a day.
I want to see that.
We'll see. You know, I mean, I have friends who would do
it. You should have a poll. You should have a poll on your YouTube channel about
oh, God, what color should I dye my beard?
I hope you guys enjoyed this interview with 802 Garage. Definitely check out Aaron's channel. He's an awesome dude with a bunch of rusty cars that he works on.
So much rust. So much rust.
That is true. And if you guys have any suggestions on other YouTubers I should interview, leave them down in the comments below. And do keep in mind, though, some people are harder to get than others. You do have to keep that in mind.
Interview that dude in blue, man. Just do it.
I don't really talk with that dude in blue that much because he's hard to get a hold of. Same with like Street Speed 717.
Yeah, I'd
so
imagine.
Those guys are so freaking hard to get a hold of. It's like, whew.
I would.
But yeah, definitely check out Aaron's channel. Check out my channel if you're just coming across this video. Yeah, and we'll see you guys
so much,
next video.
everybody. Really appreciate it.